Welcome to the From Concealment Podcast, the show for firearm enthusiasts who like to shoot, train, carry, and compete. Get ready for some shooting and sight, firearm and accessory reviews, and of course, insight on concealed carry. And now, broadcasting from behind enemy lines in the From Concealment studio, it's Pete Mitchell and Dan Sams.
Hey, Freedom Nation, this is Pete Mitchell.
And I'm Dan Sams.
And you are listening to the From Concealment Podcast. And we've just got all kinds of good stuff to talk about today. I mean, a couple of things that I want to hit on. First off, what I thought I was going to start talking about, which, by the way, I got a third thing, and it just hit me.
Nice.
So remember how I mentioned here in California, our CCWs are only good for 2 years. And the sheriff issues them. And the Orange County Sheriff Department, the CCW unit, concealed carry weapons, for those of you in states that call it something different, they closed down the CCW unit. Ooh. So I was like, dude, what does that mean for me? Mine expires at the end of May. So I reached out to my buddy who's, he's a trainer and he's in contact with them all the time. And he's like, well, no, they're still processing. They're just not letting anyone come in. So the only way you could get your CCW in the past is you had to physically go in. Mm-hmm. They take your picture and they put it on the card, laminated, and they give you that. And if you wanted to add a weapon, because again, here in California, it's done by your firearm, by serial number. Mm-hmm. If you want to add a weapon, you got to go get qualified on it, send them that. Then they call you in. Again, take your picture. You got to physically go there, pay your fees, whatever. They give it to you.
Right.
So I'm like, dude, they're closed down. I'm not going to get it. Well, he's like, no, they're still processing. And so then I get this email, hey, we're doing everything by mail. So apparently I got approved, right? So I'm excited about that. Nice. It's coming in the mail today because the post office has already sent me. They've got this thing called informed delivery, because I don't know if everybody realizes this, but they literally take pictures of everything every American gets. And so to justify this, they have a thing called informed delivery that you can sign up for. And so in the morning, they send you an email going, hey, here's a scan of everything that's coming in your mail today. Because they're freaking like,
that's
how
so
evil is that?
Shady. This is wicked, man.
That was after 9/11. That was a 9/11 thing that they said, oh, the anthrax. We need to know who's sending mail.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Man.
And we wonder why they're going out of business because they don't have any money. Well,
yeah.
Gee, let me think.
They got money to scan every piece of mail.
Hundreds of millions of pieces a day. Hundreds of millions. Ridiculous. I mean, yeah. So anyway, so it's coming today. I'm actually really excited, and I'm kind of hoping that this thing where they do it by mail continues. Because do you know what a pain it is to like freaking drive to, in our case, Santa Ana?
Oh my!
Wait in line to get your, an updated, I want to add this firearm or whatever. I mean, it's a pain.
It is.
So I'm actually kind of excited about that.
I'm glad that hopefully this carries over, man. I'm glad you got it, man.
I know. So am I. So anyway, that's beside the point. I got so many other things to talk about. Here's the biggie to me. And I do want to talk about, I don't know if you saw a 60 Minutes report on ghost guns.
No, I didn't.
Oh, dude, you got to watch it. They got the whole segment online, 15 minutes. Watch it, right?
I'm gonna have to check
We'll get into that. But here's the thing I wanted to talk about. So, of course, we got to continue our coronavirus craziness.
Of course.
Hawaii has got its head up its butt as a state. Like, I don't know what these idiots in office there are thinking. But they have completely shut down the whole state. They have a mandatory 14-day quarantine if you come to their state.
I've heard about that.
They are arresting people who are not following the quarantine. So in other words, if you fly to Hawaii, you must go directly to your hotel room. You have to stay in your hotel room for 14 days. You cannot leave to go to the pool. You cannot leave to go get dinner. Everything's got to be delivered to you via room service. If you leave at all, people are reporting it. They're snitching. And they have, like, the article that I read just yesterday, this couple was there on their honeymoon. They got arrested. They're now in jail.
Oh, man.
A 62-year-old lady who was visiting Hawaii was out on a boat. They arrested her. She didn't follow the 14-day quarantine. They're arresting people, putting them in jail. Meanwhile, 221,000 of their 600 and some odd thousand workers are unemployed. A third of their state is unemployed because they went from 30,000 visitors a day to 750 going to Hawaii.
Holy cow.
That state is like, it's screwed. And they have like one of the lowest amount of coronavirus cases there is. They're like, oh, we want to keep it that way. Do you politicians not realize what you're doing? So, like, there was this one lady who was like, she's in her 60s. She's driven 80 miles every day to work and back. She worked at the, I believe it was the Sheraton in Waikiki. March 27th, she lost her job, no severance. Her husband, who's in the hospitality industry as well, because everybody's in the hospitality industry in Hawaii. He lost his job after, 23, I think, or 28 years working there, something like that. And they got 2 adult kids that live at home. They got like no money to pay for anything. And so now they're going to the food bank. This is what they're doing to people.
Yep.
And there's not even a problem in Hawaii. Not even a problem.
So think about this too. We know that suicide rates and just rate of death goes way up for unemployed men specifically. We have 30 million people on unemployment right now. 30 million. Like, we only have 318 some million in the United States. Can people just sit back and wrap their head around?
Yeah, and most of those aren't working.
Yeah.
Like, you got kids in that. You got spouses that don't work. Yeah. So there's only, I think, like 100 to 120 million people who actually work in the United States.
And think about 30 million of those on unemployment. So how long can unemployment sustain that? How, in the absence of an economy working as it's supposed to, how can anything work? And we're already seeing, to talk to my wife's a counselor, and she of course can't share any details about anything, but she's like, I'm dealing with virtually everyone. Their anxiety levels are higher. They're freaking out. And she's like, what they need is human interaction. They need to be around people. They need to do what they do. They need hugs. They need conversations. And she's like, the panic level that's being caused in all of this, plus the lack of ability to interact, she's like, it's causing so much mental trauma, so much anxiety. And then that's not even counting for men, and as it's related to unemployment and all of this, like, talk about people losing hope. I heard a pastor talking about why churches need to get back into meetings, because he's like, we minister to people. People tend to be better off in their mental health when they're coming to church regularly. And he told the story about some guy just loses hope. He lost his job. They let him know that, like, hey, we're not going to be able to re-employ you because it's basically over for our business, at least that part of our business. Hangs himself, and his 10 and 9-year-old kid, I think it was, found him. And I'm thinking, like, that's his decision. He did a terrible thing, but like, that's what's happening because the mental state of our country is going to crap right along with the economy. And I still don't believe any of these COVID numbers, man. I just don't. Like, we know that the incentive is that if you're treating someone for COVID, if they die of COVID, the hospital gets a lot more money. We know that COVID is being used as the designation, even if they're not sure that's what they died of, but they think they had it, or maybe they had it, maybe they just think they had it. That means we just can't trust any of the numbers, like, one way or the other. And so we are ruining our economy. And now, even as things were supposed to be past the whole, like, rounding up the curve thing, whatever, leveling the curve, whatever they were calling it. And yet here we are, still in the same place. And now people are snitching on each other more. The economy is in worse shape. We've completely lost our freedoms. And man, the agitation among the freedom people, man, we're getting upset. People are getting antsy and shooting each other. Things are bad, man. And something's got to change. We'll see how it does change. Anyway, I'm agreeing with you on all that.
No, I just, I tell you, man, So this last weekend, we went as a family to the beach.
I saw, man. Yeah.
Which here in California, that's been a big battle with our governor because he got pissed at Orange County because we all went to the beach. Hey, here's the thing, guys. If you live in a part of the country where you don't live near the beach, I'm sure you've been to a beach, even if it's a lake, right?
Yeah.
You've been to the beach.
Yeah. You know what the beach is like. Yeah.
You do not go sit next to people you don't know at the beach.
Yeah, that's weird.
You sit with your family or your friends who you're already in a group with and you've always been in that group with.
Yeah. And
then you social distance naturally because, you got your family over there. That's cool. I'm not part of your family. You whatever. I'm here with my dude. Yeah. So this whole idea that all we're doing is like laying on top of each other on the beach is ridiculous.
It is. Yep.
So, Governor Newsom, Emperor Newsom, as we like to call him here, His Most Holy and Highness, Gavin Newsom, as he likes to think of himself.
The benevolent dictator.
The benevolent dictator, yes. He closes Orange County's beaches alone. No one else's beaches, just Orange County, because he's pissed at us.
Just to be a jerk.
So we all go to the beach anyway, because we're like,
exactly.
Screw you. So then, I don't know, they basically went to Gavin and said, hey, well, what if we do this? Which was, what if we just social distance? Right? Because that's what we do anyway.
Yeah.
So we go to the beach on Saturday. My wife's like, look, I want to go to the beach. I want to take the kids to the beach. I'm like, all right, that's cool. Let's go. Giddy up. Right. So, of course, I'm packing. Right. Because, I pack when I go out. I'm wearing a firearm. So we go to Seal Beach. As soon as we get to Seal Beach, I'm like, there's literally no one on the beach. And I'm like, it's got to still be closed. Because Seal Beach has got its head up its butt, too, as a city. Like, they're one of these cities that have said, okay, we're going to make it mandatory. If you're going to go into a store in Seal Beach, you have to wear a mask. So, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, anyway, we start to walk out, and the lifeguard comes over to us. Oh, hey, we're closed. And I'm like, all right, who's open? He goes, Sunset Beach is open. That's the next city over. I'm like, all right, cool. We're going to Sunset Beach. I didn't feel like harassing him because I'm like, he's a freaking lifeguard, dude. It's like, I'm not going to harass him for this. This is whatever. And besides that, I got a firearm on me, right? I don't want anything stupid going down.
Yeah. So
we get in the car, go down to Sunset Beach. And as soon as we walk up to the beach there, we see the big sign that says, exercise only, go to the water, no sitting on the beach. And we walk out on the beach. There's people with umbrellas up. They got their chairs out. It's like, whatever, screw you. We're not following this. Sunset Beach is too small of a city. They don't have their own police department.
Nice.
So Seal Beach is a big enough city. They got their own police department. Sunset, no. They got, I'm sure, Orange County Sheriff. That's who they got to use.
Yeah.
And so there's no one patrolling the beaches. So we go out there. The most liked picture I've had in probably 2 years on Facebook was a picture that you saw. It's me and my family. We're on the beach. And I said something like, don't worry, we're not sitting here, even though we're sitting right in the picture. I go, we're exercising. Exercising our rights as a free people, that is, and most liked picture for me on Facebook in at least a year, maybe 2 years. It was hilarious, right?
That's awesome.
And so then yesterday, Mother's Day, we decide we're going back to Seal Beach. They got this little grassy area. So they're still kicking people off the sand, but there's a grassy area. So we take chairs and we go to the grassy area and we just sit on the grass.
And side note, I had understood that the sand was good for killing the virus. Maybe I've misunderstood.
I think it's all BS. Because here's the thing, man. They got coronaviruses in the Middle East. It's freaking 120 degrees in the morning, and it's a desert, and they got coronaviruses. So I don't believe the whole, the sun's going to kill the coronavirus. I'm like, that's baloney. That's people trying to come up with. That's Trump trying to go, the sun's going to kill the virus. The sun ain't killing crap, dude. It's a virus. It's going to survive just fine. I mean, I'm 98.6 degrees and it can survive just fine inside of me. I don't believe it. So
exactly. All right, man. Yeah, so I loved that picture, man. It was awesome. I was glad to see the support on there. I'm glad to see just people pushing for freedom right now. People are there's plenty of protests going on. People tend to be peaceful in the protests. Nobody's wanting to cause any trouble. I think the more we do this, the more that we just say, hey, listen, you can't tell us what to do.
Yeah.
And at least not on this. Like I'm not against government totally, but like they're way outside the bounds. They're causing more harm than good. The numbers are shady. I'm just not for this. So
no, there's something. I mean, it's something evil going on. Like, I don't know if you heard this too, but Hawaii wants to basically put a GPS tracker on everyone who visits their state.
It's crazy.
To make sure that people.
That's 1984 level crazy. That's crazy.
And notice how it's become political. The red states are opening, the blue states aren't. And it's like, this is all political now. Like, we know it's political. You can't tell me, oh, the red states can open, the blue states can't. Like, what? This doesn't make any sense. So another thing that His Most Holiness here in California had to say was the only way that, a county can basically accelerate the opening process is if they've had no coronavirus deaths in 14 days. We can't say that about the flu in any 14-day period.
Yeah.
How the heck are we going to say that about another virus? That's so that you're literally calling everything a coronavirus death anyway.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you don't want to open up.
Yeah. Which is just shady, man.
It's shady. It's really bad.
Yeah.
I like every morning I turn to my wife. I'm like, dude, this thing's going to end in shooting. Like, that's the only way this thing is going to end.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want it to go that way. I do not want it to go that way. I don't want to be involved in a freaking revolution. That's where people die and crap, dude.
Yeah, I don't think any of us want to. And of course, you and I know we're following all the Boogaloo pages, all the, all that. The Boogaloo boys are the ones that are like, listen, we want peace. Like, that's what we want. We're like, and so all the guys I know in the Boogaloo movement are saying like, man, we're not going to do anything unless we're actually attacked. And so there's just continual forbearance from the freedom movement saying like, we don't want to be making things go bang first, but we will defend ourselves against tyranny if it comes to that. So there's so much push for peace. Nobody wants it, but man, things are not. I mean, some of these things, what was the county in California that, I mean, they're saying we'll come and get you from your home if you don't have enough bathrooms to essentially separate out.
I believe that was Ventura County.
So like, just on the real, can you imagine for somebody like me, somebody comes and says, hey, your kid has it and he's got to be quarantined and you don't have enough bathrooms to quarantine like we think you should. And so we're going to take him to another facility. That's straight Gestapo level. We're going to take the person who is sick or the person with disabilities and put them somewhere else. I'm not going to let that happen. Like, that's where you message the boys for the quick response teams. That's where things get serious, man. And we're not going to let somebody take my kid. Like, we're just not going to stand for that. And those kinds of things, that's when things start popping off, man. And I'm not saying I would do anything. I'm just saying that, like, that's just face facts. People aren't going to stand for that.
So I just got a text from my wife. She's at one of our local parks.
Mm-hmm.
And they have, and this is a tiny park, like, literally, it's got 2 tables and a little tiny sand area with a little digger on it.
Mm-hmm.
They've been cautioning taping the tables and the digger. So all they do is they go take it off. They're like, this is ridiculous. Take it off.
Mm-hmm.
We're using this. One of the neighbors is snitching. And my wife just sent me a text saying, hey, can you pick a lock? Because apparently they put a cable on it with a lock. And I'm like, I got bolt cutters. I'm going to take care of that for you. Don't you worry.
Heck yeah, man. Do we need to finish early?
No. This is what I'm going to do at night because I don't want to be walking around my neighborhood with bolt cutters.
Come on. Let's be honest. You're not going to do it, Pete. Leroy's going to do it.
Well,
Leroy, it's always going to be Leroy.
Leroy is a good friend of mine. He likes to look out for me. I actually don't have any bolt cutters. Leroy might have some bolt cutters.
Exactly right, man. Leroy, dude.
I've only got 80% bolt cutters. I don't have actual bolt cutters.
That's right. Oh man. So I think another thing we need to start talking about, we just need to address the whole issue of snitches. Somehow somebody got in their mind that this is like a noble thing to do, to snitch on your neighbors or your friends or your family. It's just wicked. And I just want to point out, like, if you're calling in the cops because some kids are playing on a playground that, by the way, their parents' tax money paid for. If you're calling in people to snitch on that, you're exactly the kind of person that would have been saying, like, man, I think there's some Jews, hiding out next door. Like, you are that kind of person. Don't think that you would have been on the right side of history, because right now you are on the wrong side of history. You are snitching people out for doing things that are good for them and for the community. Please don't pretend like you're the good guy.
They had the skate park and they filled it with sand. And so all the parents showed up and they started digging out the sand. And I think they were trying to sell the sand too or something. And the police came and stopped them. And then that night, their City Hall has one of those rotary doors. Yeah. And it was filled with sand.
That's awesome.
And the police go, well, there's no, we don't know for sure this has anything to do with the skate park, but
and I bet everybody involved were properly wearing masks the entire time.
Dude, all I know is that one meme that says something about breaking dumb laws is what started this great country. I'm like, yes, right? It has the picture of the boat and they threw the tea in the water. Yeah. I'm like, yeah.
Oh, I've been trying to read up more on the Black Robed Regiment. Have you heard of these guys?
No.
So the Black Robed Regiment was what the British were calling the pastors who were because the pastors in pre the colonial times or pre-Revolutionary War, colonial, whatever, were so good at recruiting people. And part of it came from they were teaching on laws related to the law of God related to how governments are supposed to treat their citizens, teaching on how taxation was not supposed to be exorbitant. There's all kinds of good stuff in there. And they're just started teaching the word of God and saying, this is wrong. And not that the law of God is wrong, that tyranny was wrong. Yeah. And they were recruiting. Some of them were leading platoons, some really interesting stuff. Look into the Black Robed Regiment. Really interesting. I thought that was really, really cool. And, but man, think about it then. We didn't have to worry about snitches so much back then. I mean, that was a thing, but we were together. Now, man, people are worshiping the tyranny.
Yeah.
That's disturbing. I blocked a dude the other day because he's essentially praising all of the government overreach. This is the same guy that was, advocating for all kinds of Marxist behavior. And I was just, I've warned him too many times. And a little side note with this guy, you know how you can do the take a break thing on Facebook?
Yeah.
Is he would just jump on and just attack. And I'm like, dude.
See, the problem is you can take a break from seeing their stuff, but unless they say take a break from you, they still see your stuff.
Yeah, man. And so that was happening. Eventually, I'm just so sick of this dude. So I responded to him. I'm like, well, then you're a snitch and you can't be trusted. And so I blocked him. So anyway, our district church meetings are going to be interesting.
Oh, he's part of your church?
Not part of my church. He's part of our denomination. So
wow.
Yeah, that'll be fun. I don't care. Yeah, that's a whole other thing. So can I talk about something practical? And then I think we should talk about the Georgia shooting a little bit, man.
Let's do it.
I think there's something interesting there. So first of all, I have, since this whole thing popped off, man, I've had all of my friends that were either novice shooters or were maybe even against owning guns, had not ever owned a gun, and all of a sudden they realized they need a gun. And so I'm getting a lot of talk about what kind of gun should I have. And I don't know about you, Pete, but I'm running into these guys who their tendency is to say, well, I've got this gun that my grandpa gave me, and this gun that I've had laying around, or I got a deal from some dude on. They got the guns that they could get cheaply, or that they thought looked cool. They didn't necessarily get the guns that were going to be right for defensive scenarios. So I just want to take a minute and say, think about the fact that, when you bought your house, you were considering how it was going to shelter your family and it had to meet your needs, right? When you buy a car, you're thinking about safety. You're thinking about all these kinds of things. You don't get foolish and you don't chintz on any of those things. So please don't do that when it comes to your defensive weapons. And so if you're out there and you're broke, that's okay. You can still get low-cost guns and do what you need to do. But you probably need some type of a 9mm handgun. You can do 45. You're going to spend more. You probably should get something. It doesn't have to be a Glock. It doesn't have to be tricked out. You probably need something in 9mm because you're going to have access to ammo. Your buddies are going to have ammo. You need something with enough stopping power. Please don't think your 22 is going to be the thing that's going to stop the guy breaking into your house, right? You need a 22. A lot of you guys have heard me say, if you want a really quality but low cost handgun in 9mm, go for a Canik. Canik has really nice handguns for under $300, and they're quality. They've tested out for however many thousand rounds. Great stuff. Get yourself a Canik if you can afford it. Get yourself a Glock. Get yourself a Walther, all that kind of stuff. You probably need a versatile fighting weapon. So think about getting an AR. $500 can get you a decent AR. Everybody's going to get it in 5.56, not 2.23, or 2.23 Wild is fine. That way you can shoot 5.56 and 2.23, but you need some type of a weapon that's versatile. You can use it for fighting. You can use it for hunting, all that kind of stuff. If you want to be that extra team member, get something in a 308 because that's handy too, but make sure you get something semi-auto because it's going to be handy. Shotgun is a handy thing, but let me just encourage everybody. I'm hearing way too much about like, well, you know, like I was talking to a friend of mine, he's a solid dude. And he's got a nice 1911 in 45, and it's a really great gun. I'm like, man, you'll do fine. That'll do stopping power, all that kind of stuff, but you're not going to want to train with it because it costs too much. And so he's like, well, I'll get a 22 to train with. That's fine, and there's advantages in having a 22, but now you're not really doing everything you need. And so he's fine. Yeah. He's going to do all right, but like he's going to need to add an AR to that collection. And
you're also not training. Like you got to understand too, guys, that you the gun feels different. The grip angle is different. So you're training with a 22. It's not the same as a 45.
Yeah.
And especially not if you're training with a 1911, because I don't know if they make a 22 version of a 1911. Because first of all, the gases produced in a 22 can't cycle a typical 1911. So I don't know if someone's made one.
They make them, but it's not going to be the same.
It's going to feel different. It's got to be different. Like it can't cycle a regular 1911.
Yeah. Well, then I'm going to say to somebody, if you're going to get a 22 pistol, get yourself a Walther P22 and get yourself a suppressor for it. And then that will have a practical value in a grid down scenario, in a survival scenario, in a boog scenario, all that kind of stuff. But everybody ought to have your AR either chambered in 5.56, or there's value in one team member having a 308. So nothing wrong with getting a 308, but know your versatility is going to be there. You're going to be able to share mags if you've got 5.56, all that kind of stuff. I just wanted to put that, whatever public service announcement out there. Make sure you get yourself an AR. Make sure you have some type of a sidearm, preferably a 9mm. 45 is fine. I know my buddy is probably listening. I'm not dissing your setup, brother. You're going to have a fine setup, but you need to just add an Ar to it. But if you're out there,
I love my 45s. I got a.
Well, you can't beat them for stopping power.
Stopping power, whatever, dude. It's all about shot placement. But anyway, my favorite 45 is I've got the MC Operator Springfield, and it's dude, they made it for the Marines. I don't think the Marines took it, and it's awesome, man. I mean, the thing is heavy. It's got a rail on it. It's just the grip on it is just freaking wonderful. Like I love that gun. It's so big though that I don't have it on my CCW because I'm like, dude, come on, am I ever going to wear that sucker?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I love my 45s, and I think about it all the time. I'm like, okay, in a scenario where I actually had to go to wearing my firearm outside the waistband, like the stuff has hit the fan, and it's time to actually carry your guns where everyone sees it. What gun would I actually wear? And I almost go, I'd want to wear that 45. Because I love it so much, but I'm all about round count. And that's the thing that makes me go, yeah, but even if I put a 10 round magazine in my 1911, one in the chamber, that's still 11.
Yeah.
Whereas my Glock, I got 17 plus 1 on a 9mm. I'm like, dude, come on.
You just can't beat that.
And then you got the other magazines for the Glock. I mean, come on. I
know. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and as with anything, you're making a judgment call between things, but I'm usually going to go with a 9mm and a lot more round count, because what you're sacrificing in power, so to speak, is pretty minimal. What you're gaining in number of rounds is pretty high.
Yeah, and
also functionality, man.
And I think too, it's a function of what do you train with the most. I know a lot of guys who I train with, like one of our rangers just finally opened last week, so I was able to go train. It was awesome.
Yeah.
We went around afterwards and everyone has to say, what'd you learn? What's your big takeaway? And everyone, oh, this, that, and the next. They come to me and I'm like, dude, this was just aromatherapy for me. Like, I just needed to shoot the freaking gun. I wasn't here to learn anything. I just wanted to shoot. And several of those guys, all they train with are 45s. That's what they shoot. And I get it. Look, if that's your deal, sweet. Be that guy all the time. Don't be like, well, it's too expensive to shoot the 45s. I'm going to shoot my, whatever. No, if you're going to be a 45 guy, then train the 45, do everything with the 45. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm with you. So anyway, I just wanted to get the word out on that. Can we talk about this shooting in Georgia? Because I think it's really interesting.
Yeah.
And before we get into it too much, I just got to say, I've been on Facebook less. And the truth is, a lot of my anti-red coat discussions are happening on Instagram through direct messenger. I'm doing less sharing of some of this stuff because I'm trying to keep a slightly lower profile, right? So this whole thing goes down with this. Forgive me, I might say his name wrong, but Ahmad, I think is how his name is pronounced. Man, things do look shady. I hadn't had the chance to watch the video, but man, I start getting pestered on Facebook to use my platform to speak out against the injustice, which is kind of annoying to me because I'm like, you know what? I didn't even post anything about Mother's Day yesterday, right? Like, I just don't follow the trend, man. Like, I share what I want to share. Sometimes I'm waiting to hear more about something. Sometimes it's clear, but I just haven't gotten around to saying anything about it, the whole thing. And I'm all that going down. So just, front end frustrated. But man, I think it's worth kind of noting, this is an example of, at least in my opinion, I don't know if you've seen the video, you're familiar with what's going on. Like, it definitely looks like these dudes just ran this dude down. Like, you're watching the video and it's like, man, this is shady. And if he did steal something, we've talked about this. It's not worth taking a man's life over a material thing. And it certainly doesn't look like it's stolen anything. And so all this stuff going on, it took him forever to arrest these two guys involved. Apparently there's a third now. And so just wanted to point out, because I got into a discussion with somebody and they're like, and I just said, well, hey man, cops tend to shoot the wrong guy, 6 times more likely to do that than a civilian. And I immediately got pushback that like, no, these are civilians, blah, 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 blah. And it's you vigilantes that blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, this is a retired cop. And by the way, it was his police department that didn't make an arrest, even though they knew about this situation. So like, come on, man. Like, this is not about your average citizen going all vigilante. This is about a cop, unfortunately, a bad cop being a bad cop. And so anyway, just thought we should bring up this or that's the way it seems to me. I recognize we're not there. I know that they found some footage of him trespassing, but it was a construction site. He just kind of walked in and looked and walked out. No evidence of him stealing. Did you hear about this?
Well, I heard something about him going into another property, but I didn't know it was a construction site.
Did you see the videos? It
no,
looks like it was,
not that one.
Yeah. So the video that I saw of that, it was supposedly him, and it looks like probably. What I first saw was all of the pro-gun guys, which rightly so, were saying like, hey, this dude was murdered and this is wrong, right? And so it was everybody from Iraq Veteran 8888, Colia Noir, Maj Toure from Black Guns Matter. All these guys are saying like, this is shady. They pretty much just murdered this black dude for jogging, right? Definitely looks like racial profiling. Definitely looks just everything bad about this. Like, and I recognize sometimes that gets thrown around. It sure does look like that's what was happening here. Best we can tell, all that kind of stuff. So then, as often happens, there's that throwing out of like, well, he fit the description of ... Right. And that gets thrown around. That's how cops, I'm just speaking as a dude who knows a lot of cops throw that around. Like, that's the way that they get away with certain things, right? And so then looking into it, it's like, okay, well, let's pay attention. So the same guys that shared hey, this was a murder, rightly followed up and said, hey, here's some footage of looks like trespassing. Again, even if he'd stolen something, not a reason to murder the dude. But by the way, take a look. He doesn't take anything. And it looks like, man, I've done this. We're like, if there's a construction site and you're taking a walk and you're like, man, cool, they're building. And you walk up and look in and you see what they're doing. Like, most of us, if you've lived in a development that's building, like, you do that. Like, and nobody seems to care. In fact, a lot of times the construction people are kind of excited to have you come see, right? So nothing that I can see that's shady about this. What's frustrating me is I'm hearing people on the left use this whole thing as an argument for not allowing civilians to have guns. And I'm like, no, this doesn't count. This doesn't go in that category when it's a recently retired cop who's hiding behind his police department. Like, I just don't think it works that way. So I wanted to bring that up, wanted to address it.
Well, I saw one comment from a guy, and I'd seen the video of him being shot. And this one guy goes, well, first of all, and he was a lawyer. He goes, he attacked the guy and he grabbed his gun.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, dude, someone comes at you with a gun. It's called self-defense.
Yeah, man.
Don't tell me he attacked him.
Yeah.
You don't wait around for some dude who's got a gun.
Well, and somebody comes and boxes you in and then pulls guns on you. Your assumption is my life is about to be over. I'm getting kidnapped. I'm going to have to fight for my life, which is what he did, and unfortunately lost his life doing it. But I can't find this dude doing anything wrong. And the whole thing is heartbreaking, frustrating. So hopefully hopefully some justice comes out of this. But
what was interesting is, okay, so for our listeners who don't know everything that I do, I work with a lot of pastors. Because I do something called bivocational training. These are guys who have, like Dan, who's got, a job outside of being a pastor. And so a lot of my connections on Facebook are pastors.
Yeah.
And this one guy who I've actually interviewed him, he's an author, he's a pastor, probably one of the best guys I've ever interviewed. Like, hearing what he does to reach people for Christ is just amazing. Because he started his first church in a bar. He was a bar back. And they're like, hey, do you need a place on Sunday morning? And he's like, yeah. They're like, hey, you can meet here. The place smells like puke and alcohol. And after partying Saturday night, and he's like, sweet, right? And he uses that. And that's where they meet people.
That's cool, man.
And his name was Alex Early. And so he writes this comment on Facebook that got so much heat. He said, remember to pray for our African-American brothers this weekend who might decide to go out for some exercise.
Oh, man.
And dude, people were like pissed at him. Like,
he's got a point though, man.
He has a point.
He's right on.
Oh my gosh, he was right on. And like this guy who kept coming at him, and he's like, not everybody's a murderer. He's like, of course not everybody's a murderer. I'm not saying they are. I'm saying we should pray for our brothers.
Yeah.
What are you talking about, man? Just like you could see all of a sudden, like, cut to the core of what are you really thinking inside. And I think people just got an ugly look at themselves and realized, dude, I'm a lot more racist than I thought I was.
Yeah. Well, it's like when one of the many instances where this kind of thing had happened. And I think it might have even been Peyton that had posted or said something about, like, cops should not murder black people. Or should not murder unarmed black men, or something like that. And people get really mad, and it's like, whoa. How do you have a problem with that statement? Yeah. And then they'll jump in and they'll be like, they put their life on the line every day. And I'm usually quick to say, like, not really, man. They're not even in the top 10 most dangerous jobs in America. So first of all, don't throw that crap out. Like, I'm tired of hearing it. Like, some of them, I recognize they put themselves in dangerous situations sometimes by their own creation. Not always. I recognize there's some good dudes, but, like, I'm tired of hearing that crap about, like, they're putting their lives on the line. That does not excuse murder. It just doesn't. And so all that kind of stuff.
One of it's for our listeners who don't know. So our mutual friend Peyton is about as white as can be. By the way, his daughters are black. Half black, and one's half black and half Filipino. The other one's half black and I believe half white. His nephew, who I've met, is one of the blackest men you'll ever meet. And he looks like a typical black dude. He is, that just built, muscular guy that you're like, dude, why couldn't I get genes like that, man? Like, just walking around kind of like, I am just built tough, right? And so Peyton was saying on this podcast that he and I do, he goes, yeah, my nephew said, when I get pulled over, he goes, both my hands go out the window. Like, I put them up there, and the first thing I say to the officer is, officer, I know what I look like. You're not going to have any problems with me. And just like he hits it head on because he looks like if I didn't know the dude, I mean, it's like he wouldn't even remember who I am, but I've met him. If I didn't know him, I'd be like, dude, okay, that guy, he's pretty scary looking. I mean, because he's just built and he's got the look, but he's a cool guy. I mean,
yeah,
totally cool.
It breaks my heart to think about dudes I know who are gentle, kind, gracious, godly men, pastors I know, black guys who are getting pulled over. And I remember talking to one guy about, like, so how many times did you get, he was talking about, I get pulled over now more that I live in, this kind of suburban neighborhood. And I'm like, well, like how often do you get pulled over? He's like, about 15 times last year. And I'm like, what? And that just rolled off his tongue. Like that wasn't a big deal. Like, I mean, he just gets pulled over for DWB all the time. And then he's super gracious to the cops. And I'm like, man, I would have a hard time because he's like, I don't have any choice, man. But that kind of stuff, I don't even believe cops should be allowed to pull people over. I mean, that's like, I'm like, if you want to go fast, you should be able to go fast. Your responsibility not to hit anybody or hurt any property. And if you do, then you're responsible. But like, I'm not a big fan of speeding laws. So anyway, that's a whole other thing. Probably should get into that.
Well, and what's funny is, okay, so one of my friends, I used to work with this gal, her brother lived in Nevada in Vegas area and was killed because two young kids, like barely high schooler, finished high school, that kind of like age group, were racing on the street, and they hit him and they killed him.
Oh man.
And I believe they got a year probation. Like that was the penalty.
It's crazy.
And it was like, what? Like, I realize they're young, nuts. But dude, when you're in a 3,500 pound machine going 110 down a street, not a freeway, and you hit a dude, there are consequences for your actions.
Yeah, definitely.
Probation ain't the consequence.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing. This is why there's so much wrong with our judicial system. But like a dude can rape a girl and get 6 months. I always like to point out that like in scripture, man rapes a woman, he gets the death penalty. Actually, this is related to the earlier issue we were talking about. In scripture, if someone robs you during the day and that way, they're only there robbing you is the insinuation. They're not trying to harm you. You're not supposed to use lethal force. And if you do, you can get tried for murder. Of course, if it happens in the night and somebody's robbing you and you have the reasonable assumption that they're actually to cause you harm and you struggle with them and they die, the language of scripture is like, you're not responsible for murder. And so it's really like the law of God gets pretty specific on what's murder and what's not. And so a situation like what we were talking about before, this thing, I think it's in Georgia, even if that dude had robbed somebody, which it's pretty clear that he didn't, not worth killing him over. Like that's just not how it works. And so in a situation like this, man, there are even manslaughter provisions in scripture for negligence or whatever. Man, and I wish we would go back to, criminal code as it's outlined in God's word. It just seems to make more sense, all this kind of stuff that we make up all these laws, and we always just keep feeling like, man, what is it about this that this dude who didn't hurt anybody is spending 50 years in jail?
Right.
The person who actually killed somebody gets off on probation. Or the guy who rapes a woman and has messed up her mind for life. She's going to have to deal with that her entire life. She's going to have levels of healing, but that scar is always going to be there. And that dude might not even see any jail time, right? Or the person who harms children and keeps reoffending and then moves into the house, 2 houses down. And now you got to think about, what are they going to do to my kids? Like in the Bible, the whole thing was like, they do that to a kid, they get the death penalty. And I'm like, let's bring that back, man. I used to be like, I don't know about the death penalty. Now I'm like, no, I think it makes pretty good sense. So, but we tend to, we use lethal force for all the people that we shouldn't be. And then we don't use it on the ones that we probably should use it on. And we can't figure out why our country is a mess. Right. And it even brings me, I was reading Psalm 94 this week, where it was talking about bad leaders actually use legal codes. They create laws for mischief. Like they design the laws to allow for more evil. And I'm afraid that's what we're in right now. We have laws that allow people to murder babies and shoot missiles at children in Pakistan, but we don't have a law to protect a woman who is raped. That's just crazy. And then we wonder why people are like, maybe we need to shake things up and get some new leadership in here.
Well, it's kind of like too, when you see people, put on Twitter and Facebook, hey, Tara Reid, I believe you. I still have to vote for Joe Biden. I totally believe you, but I got to vote for him because I can't vote for Trump. Now, first of all, I'm the last guy to defend Trump. I believe that guy should be in jail for sexual assault. He's admitted to it. Yeah, he has no problem sexually assaulting women. I'm fine with that. Yeah. So I
totally with you.
Yeah, I don't I'm not one of these guys who's like, oh, now we got to go after Joe Biden because, well, no, you're cool with Trump doing it. Don't be upset when Joe Biden does it. I'm upset with both of them for doing it.
Exactly.
And I think they should both be in jail for sexual assault. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to start bringing back that, hey, look, there are serious consequences when you do this stuff. Now, there are those cases that have come out where, unfortunately, people are lying. And there is this fine line you have to walk. And that's why we have a justice system, as broken as it is, where we have a trial by jury so that we can let, 12 of our peers actually hear the evidence and decide, are you guilty or are you not? Because there are people who lie. And that, again, is the problem of sin in our society.
Exactly right, man.
And it goes all the way around.
So this gets back to the other thing. Again, I'm not to just be a preacher about this, but the reality is in the Old Testament, there's a whole, and in the New as well, got to have two witnesses. There's a whole process even for what evidence needs to be brought against a person for what they've done wrong. And so that's worth considering. And so many of these things that the liberals have brought up, like the Kavanaugh case, I don't like Kavanaugh either, by the way. We had one person with an uncorroborated, and I'm like, man, she might be telling the truth. We can't just go on one person. Right. Because they could, but you got two witnesses. Now it's established a lot more. And by the way, in the whole case with Biden, the Tara Reid, and she's got some support. She's got some
she's got a lot of evidence.
And so, and again,
that's why all these women are like, oh, I believe you, but I still got to vote for Biden. What?
How nuts that is.
What?
How crazy bonkers that is.
My mother-in-law doesn't understand when I say, look, I can't throw away my vote and vote for Trump or Biden. Well, I don't understand. There's no one else running. And I go, look, I get to write people in. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not going to waste my vote. And she's like, well, that's a wasted vote. No, that's actually a not wasted vote. A vote for either one of those two jokers is a wasted vote.
In my case, man, I'm really seriously thinking about I'm either going to write in
Vermin
Jesus.
Supreme.
Well, no, that's a good one. I'm going to either write in Jesus Christ, right? I'm going to vote for a libertarian if I can find a good pro-life libertarian, which there's some potential on some of these guys. Or, man, I'm writing in Red E Boogie, man. Oh, Red E Boogie it might just be my candidate this year.
Well, the reality is we all are going to get a chance to write in. At least here in California, November's elections all write in. It's all done by mail now.
Yeah.
Our Supreme Leader has decided, Supreme Leader Snoke has decided that he's just going to do write-in ballots.
Yeah, man.
Despite what Californians want. So we pretty much know the anti-Prop 13, which is what keeps our property taxes from going out of control, is all of a sudden going to pass in November. Democrats will all win across the board. I mean, every law we don't want is going to go through. We know that because it's all done by mail now.
Yep. So the way it goes.
It's unfortunately the way it goes.
Just like in certain states when grandpa dies and all of a sudden he starts voting Democrat.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. I think we had a county in West Virginia. It might not have been West Virginia, but the voter turnout one year was more than the population of the county. Or the votes for a certain candidate were more than the population of the county. And everybody's like, wait a minute.
Yeah. And I think it was LA County, or it might have been Ventura. There were 148% of the eligible voters registered to vote.
Man,
148%.
That is crazy.
Gee, I wonder who they were all voting for.
Yeah.
And what's funny is in some states, it goes the other way. In some states, it's the Republicans who have greased everything, and all of those dead people are now voting Republican. It's like, dude, these guys are both evil on all sides.
Yeah. All shady, 100%.
Yeah.
I'm with you, man. Yeah. Oh, man. So all the craziness. Did you have something else you wanted to talk about, though?
I was just going to say, guys, if you haven't seen it, there was a great segment on 60 Minutes about ghost guns. And of course, they're against ghost guns, and they're basically showing, oh, now we're starting to see ghost guns come up in mass shootings. And of course, they have a father there whose daughter died from a mass shooting, and it was a ghost gun that was used. This was in, I think, like Santa Clara here in California, or maybe Ventura area. It's one of the school shootings that we had within the last, couple of years. And they brought up a really good point. I had mentioned this before on the podcast, and that is, because of the coronavirus, the ghost guns are like sold out. They are really hard to get because you can just order it and it gets delivered to you. And then they're like, it's just like IKEA. You got to put everything together, and they give you the drill bits, and, they're showing a polymer 80. And I'm thinking, this is actually really good advertising for polymer 80. And of course, they had the ATF there, and they're like, well, how many people are committing crimes with this? And, well, we have no idea. Well, how many crimes? And he's like, look, it's a very small percentage, but it's growing. Like, that's okay. It's a very small percent, but it's growing. So,
that's like, hey, Mr. ATF agent, of the population of children in the United States, how many of them have burned to death? And they'll be like, well, it's a very small percentage, but it's growing. Yeah.
You got to ban fires. It's growing. And
which have you seen the thing where Netflix, of course, adds the Waco miniseries and the Patriot during all of this?
I just like to mix things up. I just
like to stir the pot.
Yeah, stir the pot.
Which everybody needs to see Waco. It was really well done. I'm loving that I'm having conversations with like grandmas in my church that are like, can you explain to me about when are we going to rise up and fight this stuff? And I'm like, have you ever heard of the Boogaloo? Which, by the way,
Grandma, you're teaching Grandma about the Boogaloo.
I forgot. There's a lady in my church, and I forgot to explain that there are at least 3 versions of the word Boogaloo. One of them is a dance. One of them is, of course, the Second American Revolution. The third is a pretty rough sex act. And apparently she Googled it. And I'm like, I forgot to warn you about that third one, because I forget that ever exists, because I don't think about that. And so I'm like, whoops, sorry about that. But either way, she's down with the movement, man. She's supporting the Boogaloo.
Dude, I got to ask you, what does your tattoo mean? I've always wondered that.
This one?
Yeah.
The 3 arrows?
Yeah.
So when I wrote my book, I actually wrote a book called Follow, a handbook for making disciples of Jesus Christ. And I was trying to think of a good illustration for like follow. And so we thought of like arrows or whatever. And so the cover designer just put an arrow on it. Check it out, by the way. It's available on Amazon. You can get it on Kindle or on paperback. And then I just thought it looked so cool, the arrow. And so I thought, there's also in Scripture, there's language of your children being like arrows, and like your quiver being full of arrows. And so I have 3 kids, and I thought, you know what? That just looks cool. People on the show can't see it, but it makes me look tougher if I'm ever in a bar fight, because I bring up my left.
That's it. If you're ever in a bar fight, how about if you're ever in a bar? Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah. One. Well, sometimes, sharing the gospel, drinking beer, it just happens.
You're at an island. You're not at a bar. Pastor.
That's true. Right. I'm only there for evangelistic purposes.
You're at a sports bar. Trust me, as a guy who's been to a bar, I can't see you at a bar, not a real bar.
So, not very often. I don't really fit in those kind of places. It's probably true.
Neither do I.
That's right. It's good stuff, though.
Actually, I haven't had a drink in over a year. No, I did have a sip of wine the other night, but then it's been a year.
That's awesome, man.
That's only because I'm trying to lose weight, man. That's the only reason. I've lost 20 pounds in this quarantine. This quarantine's been good for me.
Praise the Lord, man. That's awesome.
There we go.
I got, one of our church planters down in El Salvador, man. He's working out every day, and he's doing really good. He's losing weight really quick.
Awesome.
I'm staying kind of steady. I think I don't know. I'm not trying one way or the other. So as long as I don't get lazy, hopefully I'll be okay. getting out moving rocks and just trying to justify.
What in the world is that? Is that one of your wolves? I think that's a wolf in the house.
That's my son, but he's part wolf, raised by wolves.
There you go, man. There you go.
That's my son. Yeah, he came in on me earlier. I don't know if you could see. I was like, I was trying to get him to be quiet. I straight stiff-armed him so that he wouldn't come in here and say anything.
Hey, it's podcast during the quarantine, man. This is just how it rolls.
Yeah, man. This is the way we do it. So
go ahead and give Lake Erie their plug.
Yeah. Oh, man. And actually, great news. Lake Erie Arms restocked a lot of what we call the cool guns. We've got some really fun AR pistols, lots of other stuff going on. Some amazing deals on Canics. We've got a couple of Canics that are I don't know if I'm allowed to say prices on here, but like under $300 for a really high quality 9mm. Like, I'm amazed. And so get down there. We've got some great stuff. If you want to check out anything there at the store, of course, but online, you can sign up for our newsletter, which is booming. Lots of fun stuff happening on there. Of course, free downloads, all kinds of videos on what you need to do when you're building your next AR. Check out learms.net or come on in to Lake Erie Arms in Huron, Ohio. We'd love to have you. Good stuff, everybody.
Cool. All right, guys, we'll be back next week with another great episode. We'll talk to you then. Take care.
You've been listening to the From Concealment Podcast with Pete Mitchell and Dan Sams. Be sure to tune in next week for more gun talk. Also, check out the From Concealment website for more shooting-related goodness at FromConcealment.com.